If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this.
Slept with my fiance dad and made a pact. It's 11 p.m. and I just got home. My fiance and I got into the biggest argument this afternoon. Wedding planning has been a lot of stress on me. And I'm doing it all alone since I moved here all alone. He has all his friends here and his family, but I'm here with no friends. So wedding planning and the bridal expos have been keeping me occupied and happy. Well, today we had an argument and I ended up leaving the house to clear my head, only to realize I really have nowhere to go and didn't want to be home, just to give us time to cool off and regroup. I ended up just going to his parents' house and going over floral with his mom for a few hours until she ended up running out for groceries. It was just me and his dad there, and he noticed something was going on. And I ended up telling him about our argument and how he wasn't being understanding and considerate of how I was feeling and how the move affected me. He was very understanding and gave good advice and listened to everything I had to say. The talk then led to a hug, and then a kiss, and everything happened so fast, and next thing I know, we're having sex. I regret it so much and hate myself so much for this, and not even thinking it all just happened so fast. We made a pact to not speak of it and both agree that it was a mistake and shouldn't have happened, that it was just a moment of weakness. I am home now, but I can't even look at my fiance. He keeps asking if I'm okay and wants to put the fight behind us and apologized, but I can't get over what I did. I slept with his dad. I don't know if I just want to vent or if I just need advice. I don't even know why I'm coming on here. I just feel so awful. I cheated on my ex-boyfriend and don't regret it. Hi, 19F, and the guy the first cheated on was 26M. First off, I was just 17 when I met this guy on the internet, who was 26 at the time when I dated him. I was already going through the deep end from past relationships and wasn't really interested in dating at the time and just wanted to focus on school. During that time, I was a user on Kik and was looking for people to chat with as friends on there. Eventually I ran into him on that anonymous chat thing on the app, and after having a brief conversation we ended up adding each other to talk some more. While we talked, I noticed that we had a lot of things in common. We liked the same movies, the same music, etc. And he overall seemed like a nice guy. After having a few laughs and chatting, he asked me to be his girlfriend, which really caught me off guard. I told him that I wasn't interested in dating and was still getting over an ex-boyfriend at the time. But then he started saying things like, he would never hurt me, and things like that. He also started going on about how he was suffering from depression from when his first girlfriend cheated on him with his best friend and his second girlfriend dying in his arms during a terrorist attack at an airport in Istanbul. He's Turkish. I honestly felt bad for him, and given that he seemed like a nice guy, the first decided to give him a chance despite him being older than me. He was really excited and said that he wouldn't let me down and seemed to have an understanding about my past relationships, but I did tell him that it would be best to take things slow and he agreed. During the first few days of dating, things were going pretty well even though our relationship was long distance. He would constantly shower me with compliments and would often tell me how much he loved me and that he never felt the way he did about anyone before, etc. I was actually caught off guard that he would say any of that when he only knew me for a short while. Even though it all seemed flattering at first, I started to have my doubts. Fast forward, and it was a month into our relationship. We were chatting one night and he asked me to marry him. Even though I was having some doubts, I was starting to fall in love with him at the time and I said yes stupidly. But the weird thing is, while we were talking about marriage, I asked him if it was even legal for a guy his age to marry someone a lot younger than him. He said no, if I remember correctly, but also said that he was against child marriage and thought it was disgusting. Which I thought was weird considering he literally asked me to marry him even though I was 17 at the time. He also said that age was just a number a few times during the course of our relationship. I was also starting to get suspicious about his age because he looked so much older than 26 at the time. And I say this because he had gray hairs, was balding, had bad teeth and was just overall not a good-looking dude in general. But back then I really didn't care about his looks, and it was just his good personality that made me fall for him. Anyway, after talking about my suspicions with him, I asked for an ID or something to confirm his age. And this motherfucker really told me that no one in Turkey is born with a birth certificate and was afraid of showing me his ID because he was scared of getting hacked. I thought it was just an excuse and thought it was bullshit, but I left it alone. Fast forward. And he starts getting upset with me for not sending him pictures, not nudes, just normal pictures. I told him that I didn't want and wanted to wait until I was comfortable in sending them. He was okay with this at first but seemed to grow impatient, saying things like, "I would never hurt you," and "I'm not like your exes," and "I just want to see the love of my life," etc. Eventually I did, and we also would video call at some point. While we were on video call on Google Hangouts, he just came off as really creepy. We texted while FaceTiming, and if I remember correctly, the screen was really dark on his end. He started saying how beautiful I was and everything, even though half of my face was covered with bed sheets. But eventually he actually spoke and started calling me his beautiful baby and things like that. He even said that the second time we video called each other. Fast forward, and the age gap between me and this guy started to not only dawn on me, but I was also having thoughts on breaking up with him because I was having some doubts about our relationship. One night I eventually told him that it would be best to break up, and he started freaking out. He started saying that life had no meaning for him, that he couldn't live without me and that he would kill himself, etc. And even started sending those depressing black and white gifs that said, "goodbye," and other similar stuff like that, pretty much giving off the impression that he really was going to kill himself. I started to get scared and even tearing up, pleading with him to not take his life, and I told him I would stay with him and not leave out of desperation. Eventually he calmed down and started expressing his love again as if what he just did never happened. I started telling him that I loved him and stuff like that. I woke up the next day, however, and officially made up my mind and told him I was breaking up with him for good after realizing what he did was emotionally manipulative. He then went on to say that he would never lie to me after I told him what he did was wrong and things like that. He sent me a handwritten note after our conversation that said, "Bite then my name." Here's part 2 to the story. It was a few days after I broke up with my ex, and I honestly never felt so relieved in my life. I felt this heavy weight lift off my chest because I thought I got out of a situation I'd never see myself in again. I felt relieved until I made the biggest mistake of my life. I decided to go back on Kik and check on my ex, because I felt like something was wrong and was worried that he might have actually taken his own life. I logged in on the app and asked if he was okay, and that's when I came across his father. My ex's father went on saying that he found his son lying unconscious on the floor next to pill bottles, after trying to overdose on them a few days after our breakup. He also said he left a suicide note, which he didn't show. But he did say that the note said his son met a girl on Kik and was devastated about the breakup, so Kik was the first place he looked. I honestly couldn't believe what I was reading, and at that moment I felt really guilty about breaking up with my ex. His dad was furious with me during the whole conversation, saying that it was my fault his son was in that situation and was worried about him, saying that he just wants his son to be happy. His dad knew about my age at the time but didn't care. I understand being devastated about your child attempting suicide, but what I never understood was him being pissed off at an actual kid making the right decision in getting away from a relationship that was manipulative and inappropriate. His dad was also angry at me because of the fact that I didn't want to send his son any pictures before the breakup. He also said that after his son was taken to the hospital, he contracted COVID while being treated there, which made the whole situation much worse. I told his dad that I loved his son very much and didn't want anything to happen to him out of the moment of desperation. His dad kept blaming me for his son's suicide attempt, saying I wasn't a good fit for his son. And because of that I felt really heartbroken and was on the verge of tears and was even blaming myself for this whole situation. I told his dad over and over again that I would never hurt his son again and that I really did love him, again out of a moment of desperation. He seemed to calm down after I texted that. He also told me that because my love for his son seemed so real, he was happy and was going to give his son a phone call and tell him what I had said. I don't really remember anything else he said after that moment, but after the conversation ended, I just sat there on my bed crying and didn't believe that I found myself stuck in this relationship again. The next day, the dad texted me again saying that his son was getting his stomach pumped due to the large amounts of medication he overdosed on and wouldn't be out of the hospital for 14 days because of him contracting COVID. His dad and I were talking, and he went on saying that his son was saying great things about me before the breakup. His dad also said, our love was something out of a romance movie, which now that I'm looking back on, is so fucking cringe. He even said that he would be proud to see me and his son married one day and called me his daughter-in-law. Again, he knew I was 17 at the time, but it didn't really faze him. Fast forward, and my ex left the hospital and we were back together again. Our relationship was sorta on and off after that point. We would always argue because even though I stayed with him, I was still pissed off at the fact that he emotionally manipulated me. But every time that came up he would always say he would never lie to me and would die first, before he ever did something like that, and every time I look back on that now it is just a load of bullshit. Him emotionally manipulating me wouldn't end though. Every time I expressed that I wanted to leave, he would always say things like, life has no meaning for him, and he'll never find love again if I left, and he's a loser, etc. Just coming up with things to make me feel sorry for him. We would break up a few times as well during the course of our relationship, but I could never bring myself to actually go through with the breakups because of not only the mixed emotions I was having at the time, but also because I would often think to myself that if I actually left him for good he would commit suicide and it would have been my fault if that happened. So he always had that idea looming over my head. If y'all are reading and you're asking, why didn't you just block his ass and cut all contact from him? I couldn't. It was really difficult for me. Especially since he would sometimes say what we had was true love. And honestly, I believed him. A part of me stayed because I wanted to believe that maybe he actually did love me and his feelings for me were genuine. But another part of me was not only disgusted by him but absolutely fucking hated him and was so desperate to get out of the relationship. So it was just a constant battle between those two emotions every day, and it was starting to take a toll on my mental health a little. And it also didn't help that I was suffering from depression at the time. During that time he also wanted to control the things I was saying. I curse a lot, so whenever I started swearing even when I would joke around he would often say, you should stop talking like that because that's no way to speak like a lady. He said it was because of cultural reasons, but had no problem swearing whenever he wanted to, but there was always a problem when I did it. I was so desperate to get out of the relationship that I came up with things for him to break up with me. I said things like, if my family finds out about our relationship, especially my parents, they'll be furious, and my parents would never allow a grown man to date me, but that never fazed him in the slightest. He said, if I could just prove to your parents how much I love you, they will allow us to be together. He would often say that he would never leave because I'm the angel of his life. He was so fucking delusional that he actually thought my parents would even allow that to happen, especially since he was almost in his 30s. And I know that this may sound sus, but one day I thought to myself, if he doesn't see a problem in being with a 17-year-old, what would his reaction be if he came across a 14-year-old? So I decided to create a fake account and text him with it. He didn't seem interested at first, and stupidly enough I took that as a sign of loyalty. But I texted him again a few days later as a girl was going through some relationship troubles. He said that he wanted to cheer this girl up and everything but was asking for pictures. I sent him a picture of this girl I found online, and when I did, he said the girl looked pure and beautiful even though the girl looked like a crying mess. He was just really fucking creepy during the whole conversation. I asked him if he's in a relationship, which he then said no, and that he's only been in 2 relationships in his life, to which he then asked the girl if she wanted him. He then went on saying that he wanted to see her more and talk to her despite her telling him that she's 14. I then came up with an excuse to end the conversation there. I confronted him about what happened and he was playing dumb, saying he was only trying to make the girl feel happy because she was sad. I still have the screenshots of that whole interaction. If I show them to you guys, you wouldn't think of them as creepy. They were creepy to me because I knew what his intentions were. He wasn't there to help this girl out of the kindness of his heart because she was upset. He was there to take advantage of a vulnerable teenage girl he came across online. The whole conversation with the fake profile didn't really surprise me. Him being caught made him so nervous that he was saying nonsense. He said, "How would your parents feel if you dated a white man?" Which I thought was pretty funny because it had nothing to do with what had happened. I told him that we were done for good, and to no surprise he said, "I'm going to find something else to kill myself with." I asked why was he doing this, to which he then said, "It's because I love you." I told him that trick wouldn't work this time. I told him that he needs serious therapy because it was obvious that he had a lying problem during our relationship, and he agreed to see a therapist. Here's the third and final part to the story. So it was about, I would say, a month or so that my ex said he was doing good in therapy and said he was a changed man. He said that he finally realized his mistakes in our relationship and would do anything to convince me that he has really changed his ways and wanted to get back together. I didn't give in for a while until I started slowly considering taking him back. I also started to believe that he really has changed, apologizing every day for what he did and even regretting that he ever spoke to the girl from before, believing that she was the cause of our relationship's downfall. He still didn't know it was me during this time. I eventually gave in and decided to give him another chance. He wanted a blank, new chapter after everything that happened. It was a few days into our new relationship and everything seemed to be going great until a guy the first dated previously came back into town. My previous ex left my hometown for about a year, but came back after trying to start a rap career or some dumb shit. He ended up calling me saying how much he missed me, which really caught me off guard. He came to my house the very same night and was sorry that he left without keeping in contact. After talking and catching up, we ended up making out, but there wasn't anything coitus. I felt really guilty about what I did and ended telling my current ex about what happened the next day. He was really pissed at me, telling me to stop playing victim, and things like that, and even telling me he hated me. I felt really ashamed about what I did, even to the point where I couldn't eat on some days. Fast forward and he texts me after a couple of days telling me he was sorry about what he had said. He forgave me and wanted to start over like before. I apologized too, but told him we couldn't be together anymore. Like before, he tried convincing me that we were meant to be together and that fate has brought us together for a reason. I told him that I wasn't a good person for what I did, which led to him saying, "I know Merv is looking down on us and she would have wanted us to be together." Merv is his previous girlfriend who died at the airport. But honestly, even though I felt guilty about the cheating, I also never felt so free in my life. I felt like I had finally gotten away from a guy that put me through so much emotional torment and manipulation, and I never felt so happy in my life. Also, me and my ex that came back into town broke up after a few weeks, which was fine because things weren't really working out anyway like before, and I honestly didn't know what I saw in him. Anyway, I started to have a strong feeling in my gut that something was seriously wrong with the story of his dead girlfriend. So I started doing some research on all the victims that died during that terrorist incident in Istanbul in 2016. It was a long list. His dead girlfriend's name was Merve Gunger from what he told me. I didn't find a Merve Gunger anywhere on the list, which I thought was really odd. But I did find a Navneeth. After we spoke about his dead girlfriend, I told him that I was looking up the list of victims from that time. He started to get upset, asking what I was doing and if I was still looking at the list. I asked why he was getting upset and he said that I triggered a traumatic memory. I look back on that now and that pretty much was a load of bullshit, but I apologized nevertheless. Fast forward a few months later, and he is still trying to convince me that we should be together and couldn't stop apologizing for the stuff he did before. I would tell him that I can't take him back, however. Because of his apologies, I was considering taking him back and giving him yet another chance, but I would often think about the shit he put me through and never allowed myself to do that. Because of his lying problem, I wanted to be able to speak to his parents, but he would always make an excuse saying, "They're out of town," or, "They're sleeping and I don't want to wake them up," or, "They don't want to be bothered," etc. It's obvious now that he really didn't want me to talk to his parents for obvious reasons. During this time, I did some more digging on his previous girlfriend. I kept thinking to myself, if Merv actually died, why wasn't she anywhere on the list with the other victims? I also noticed that both Navneeth and Merv Gungar looked nothing alike. I also found it odd that there were no obituaries of Merv Gungar anywhere. I went on my ex's old Facebook page and scrolled there for at least 11 minutes. There were no memorial posts found on Merv, no mention of a funeral or anything. I also didn't find a single picture of him and Merv together on there, despite him showing me a picture of them smiling together a few months before, or his old Twitter page. It was just posts of him doing normal stuff. I also remembered him telling me that he used to be in a band and traveled around on tour as a drummer. There was only one picture of him playing drums, and the band that he was a part of was only a metal band in Turkey that he was a fan of for some time and took pictures with. I also remembered him telling me how he was in film school and made short films for a living. I saw a picture of his college graduation and Merv was nowhere in sight, even though he said they went to film school together. I looked around on his old Twitter page and only found one short film that was only 2 minutes long. I had no idea what the short film was about, but it was absolutely atrocious. He even told me at one point that he worked as a clown in a children's hospital. I feel bad for those kids, if I'm being honest. But anyway, I ended up finding Merv on a website with posts as recent as 2018 when he said she died in 2016. The website was some sort of project website on how to build electronics. She looked exactly like the Merv Gungar in the picture he showed me when we first started dating. This confirmed my suspicion that he was lying the entire time about his girlfriend's passing, but this didn't really surprise me. I confronted him about this and he swore that he was telling the truth about everything, even when I asked him if he was pretending to be his dad on the day he was supposed to be at the hospital after his suicide attempt. He said that the Merv on the website and the Merv on the picture he showed me were not the same person, even though it clearly was. They had the same build, same facial structure, same hair, everything. My ex and I haven't really spoken all that much after that. But I did ask if I could speak to his parents again to share my side of the story. He got upset, saying that he already told. But I know for certain he didn't. So because of that, I decided to share my story here, since he took that opportunity away from me. And I won't lie, there were days where I would think of the good times we had, but as far as getting back together with him, I don't think that'll ever happen. This whole relationship has definitely left a deep emotional scar on me, and honestly I don't think I'll ever heal from that. Whenever I think of my ex, I feel absolutely fucking disgusted and always feel burning hatred. I fucking hate him for everything he put me through. And it's funny how he said he felt as if he was the victim in all of this, when that couldn't be further from the truth. He's a fucking disgusting, lying piece of shit, and I hope that whenever he comes across a woman in his life, they see him for the piece of shit he is. And that is why I don't feel bad about cheating on him. I'll also be posting screenshots of the Merv situation and everything else that happened. What are your thoughts?